Round of applause. So at least I know someone paying attention, right? Okay, so without further ado, I invite Dr. Chin Young Ki. You guys are really going to enjoy this segment. Please try not to be too relaxed as I hand over to Dr. Sarah.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. The lady there, you're getting free counseling for life. Actually, it's free for everybody, but some kind of preferential something. All right, so good afternoon. You started your orientation today. I know you have a really packed schedule for all kinds of things. Is it going well so far? So far-ish? And anyone feeling daunted yet? Lady there, you get free counseling. Some of you still excited? Oh, that's naivety. That will wear off soon. Ha, just kidding, just kidding. All right, so I am from the Counseling and Psychological Service. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the service and what's available for you as long as you're registered here at UWI. And we're going to do a little bit about really your well-being as future health professionals, okay? So first things first, I'm sure all of you are up to date on your things that you need to do. I'm sure you have all your stocks from Pennywise, but how often do you actually check in with yourself about how you're actually feeling? So again, when you wake up, how's my mood? How's my energy? Am I looking forward to today? Is there something I'm dreading? What's my anxiety level like? I mean, we don't often check in on things like this, right? And yet actually doing that is just as important as your exercise, your diet, and all the other things. So nobody's feeling this right now. Everyone's really excited. But just to give you a little idea, things like burnout, right? This is when you've been working, pushing it really hard, maybe going at 110%, either because you're really excited or you're loving the work. But sometimes you actually give up all the other stuff that you usually do to take care of yourself, and it's just work, work, work. Now, with FMS, not to a stereotype, but generally you are, uh, sorry, I was gonna say overachievers. That's not what I mean, but you are high performing people. You probably come from very competitive backgrounds and you are now in competitive fields. And one of the things that can happen is actually burnout. You could be a little bit more vulnerable to burnout because you might be more type A personalities that deliver on the work, ignore the other things that feel like luxuries or soft stuff. And actually, that can lead to burnout, right? So one of the key things I want you to notice is when we're burnt out, even when we're stressed, even when we're anxious and depressed, across all of those things, cognitive symptoms include difficulty concentrating. And if you can't concentrate well, it impairs your memory. And so one of the things I really want you to think about is when you don't have time to go to the gym or do your dance class or whatever it is you normally do to relax because you want to do your work well, remember that if you actually don't take care of yourself, you actually won't process or remember your work as well. So stress is actually quite important to your ability to do quality work. Okay, so I want you to think about that, right? But there are other things like anxiety. So anxiety is a little different. It's usually when you're worried about something that may or may not happen. You might have racing thoughts. If you have racing thoughts and you can't sleep very well at night, you might start doubting yourself, maybe having difficulty making decisions because like, is this really the best decision? And you procrastinate. What else? Physical things would be difficulty sleeping, disturbances in your appetite. So when y'all are stressed, how many of y'all find you lose your appetite? Yeah? How many of y'all eat more than usual? How many of you eat more KFC, particularly? In other words, what you eat and how you eat can be affected by these things, right? Things like even getting more headaches, right? A lot of it can be quite physical. So that's another thing I want you to think about is that if you don't check in with yourself, your stress levels can actually build up and you don't even realize. You're not sleeping well, but you're like, yeah, I have a lot of work to do. You keep pushing and you don't actually realize how much it's affecting you. You start having headaches a lot, you lose your appetite, you're thinking, well, it's hot, I'm probably not drinking enough water or something like that, when actually there could be symptoms of stress as well, right? Last thing is actually low mood or depressed mood. It isn't just about feeling sad. It can actually be about feeling really irritable and impatient and frustrated a lot of the time, like when you recognize you have really low tolerance. It doesn't just affect women, okay? So men sometimes present differently. Men may actually present more with irritation and anger, but actually it's the same depressed mood underneath. Again, you got your physical stuff, sleep, appetite, energy levels. A key thing with depression is you actually lose motivation. So a lot of students will come and they'll say, I feel really lazy, I just don't have the energy, and I've lost my whatever. So they're giving themselves a hard time because they feel lazy. But actually losing your energy and motivation can sometimes be part of depressed mood, right? Gosh, it sounds very depressing, and none of you are there yet. Not yet, sorry. So I want to tell you about the counseling service. Now, you don't have to be depressed or having a huge trauma to come to the counseling service. If your program isn't quite what you thought it would be, if you're kind of struggling a little bit to keep on top, or you're just not loving it, or something is happening in your personal life, you just want a space to talk about, then you can book an appointment for yourself. So it doesn't have to be a massive drama, right? We are open throughout the year. We only close when campus closes, like between Christmas and New Year's Day. Monday to Fridays. We do online. We're on main campus, but the Faculty of Medical Science also has its own counselor, and he is at the Student Recreation Center on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So you can have face-to-face at Mount Hope, or if you just want to get off Mount Hope, you could come to main campus as well. You just need to let us know which you prefer. Okay? For those of you that aren't into counseling but might like a little relaxation, on main campus, we have Mindful Mondays every Monday during the semester. It's basically relaxation, bit meditation, learn mindfulness skills. It's just an hour to relax. Other programs, we have a safe space, whether you're a member, ally of the LGBTQ community. It's a student group that again meets once a week during the semester. So there's an email for that if you're interested to find out more. So let's think a little bit. This is basically life, right? A lot of you, myself, I'm really good at making plans. The key thing to making plans is be super flexible with them because life usually happens. And you need to kind of move with it. So a lot about stress management is actually being able to flex around things. When things are disappointing, when they don't go as you had hoped, and when other people aren't playing the part that you're kind of relying on, right? Now, mental health, stress, well-being, all of these things actually have a huge, they're driven by your perspective. So whether you think you are an optimistic person or a pessimistic person, or if you think, oh, there's only crap has happened to me, it's only me, I'm very unlucky, all of these ideas you have about yourself, what you expect from people, shape your assumptions and also shape the way you react to certain situations as well, right? Now, where does this come from? We don't all come from happy, slappy families, right? We have stuff going on in our personal life. And all of those early experiences kind of shape the way you think about yourself. Do you think about yourself as a super competent person? Would you describe yourself as very confident? Do you think that I'm self-reliant? I don't like asking people for help. I hate looking vulnerable. I do things for me, right? Or actually, do you have a big support system? Do you think like I thrive in groups and group work versus I like doing things on my own individually and so on? So all of you will have those kinds of preferences. So real simple things I'm talking about, right? What about making relationships? Do you have maybe a lot of friends, but you don't really tell them a lot of stuff, right? Are you the type that they come to you, but you don't really want to come to them? Or you wouldn't open up about a lot of stuff? And so the way we manage our relationships, the way we see ourselves, all of these things actually impact how easy or challenging it is actually to accept a bit of support or to look for support or even recognize that you need some support. So you understand how it's all linked up in terms of like your well-being as well, right? So the way that we think about things can vary a lot. And these are some good examples. So should and must thinking. I must always do my best. I must never let other people down, right? I should give it 100%. I should never make excuses. So I had a student and actually he was very unwell physically and his work suffered. And when he failed an exam, he was really devastated. And I said, but you know, you were sick, like you were in hospital for 2 weeks. That really must have thrown you off. And he's like, oh, I don't want, that's just an excuse. And I thought, oh, okay. I mean, it is reality though, as in it happened. And so for those of us that like to drive ourselves, like I don't give stupid excuses, right? Remember, it's very important to distinguish between a reality check, like what your actual situation is, versus an excuse. Because usually when we say, I don't want to give sloppy excuses, we're thinking I've just been lazy and I should push through no matter what, right? But you have other priorities in your life. And if you're physically unwell, that can throw you off too. Say something happened in your personal life, you haven't been able to attend all your classes, or you had to register late for a semester, that can really throw you off and you don't really feel like you're on top of stuff. Now, you could be frustrated with yourself, absolutely. You could be resentful of the situation you're in, yes. But it is also the reality of your situation, which means you feel at a little disadvantage. It's not you being lazy. It's not like you should have compensated no matter what happens. Yeah? So another one that I personally love that I'm very good at is catastrophizing. So catastrophizing is when you jump to the worst possible situation. So I don't feel on top of it now. I'm not cut out for this program. All right? And I think sometimes you want to ask yourself, what's the worst thing that could happen? What else might happen and how I could deal with that? So when we catastrophize, that also drives up the anxiety and stress. So for persons who are way above average, very often you are afflicted by a disease called perfectionism, right? But you think it's wonderful and you think it's the driver for your success, but it can also actually make you more vulnerable to stress and depression and things like that. And that's usually where, if you're not at performing at the top, it's almost as good as a fail to you. Like there's never a good enough, right? And so if you are used to being at the top of your class, this is a thing that a lot of students might struggle with. When you come to university, all the people at the top of their class are here together. So you may no longer be at the top of the class. Now, are you above average? Are you passing everything? Are you getting good feedback from your lecturers? Maybe. But if you're not top of the class where you used to be, that can actually throw people a lot. And it's very important to recognize that you're in a different ball game now, right? And you might need to adjust the way in which you see yourself or what you associate as successful, smart, and competent. So if there's some perfectionism going on, obviously that we can kind of challenge that a little bit, okay? So first things first, actually don't believe everything that you think, right? I could think lots of things in my head and not necessarily realistic, or it's not necessarily your reality either. Now, why is that? Our mood and how we feel emotionally actually impacts the way we see things and how we perceive things, which in turn affects what we do, how we react, our behavior, and so on. So at any given moment, your physical well-being and your emotional mood is actually shaping the way you see things, the way you hear a comment, the way you listen in class, the way you're engaging in a conversation with a friend. And so we need to think a little bit of irreverence in terms of what we think. What you think is not necessarily a fact, okay? Another thing that can happen is that when we're anxious and we feel like things are out of our control, we focus on things that are very much in our control but might be irrelevant. So like when I was in exams, literally all my cans and packets would be facing the right way, and my bathroom and kitchen were like super clean. I mean, that didn't help me with the exams, but it helped me feel like I was doing something and accomplishing something, right? So one of the things you want to think about, if your mind is going on something, ask yourself, is this something that matters? Is it going to make a difference? Is it also something that's realistically under my control? Because you may be well fussing and obsessing about something that has to do with a program that actually you don't have any say in. And the lecturer or your dean will either decide this way or that way. And until you get that information, you might find yourself really worrying about it. Again, that can just trigger stress and doesn't allow you to problem solve the actual situation, right? So I want to do a little relaxation for a little minute here. So for those of you who feel comfortable, you could close your eyes. If you don't want to close your eyes, you could just kind of look at the seat ahead of you or the back of the person's head. Just soft focus, okay? If you could just put your phones down for just 60 seconds, that'd be good just to help you relax, okay? So I just want you to start by taking a nice deep breath in through your nose and then let that breath out slowly. Take another deep breath in through your nose And again, just let that out slowly. And as you allow your breath to go back to its own natural rhythm, you don't need to slow it down, you don't need to deepen it. I want you to bring your attention to your forehead, the muscles behind your eyebrows, the muscles around your eyes. And the next time you breathe out, I want you to release any tension or tightness there. Just softening the forehead, the eyebrows, imagining your eyelashes relaxing. And I want you to imagine that sense of relaxation spreading all the way down to your cheeks. So you could wiggle your lower jaw a little bit. Notice any tension or tightness there. And the next time you breathe out, I want you to relax that jaw. Relax your tongue. And imagine that sense of relaxation going all the way down your neck, down your throat, all the way out to the tips of your shoulders. Imagine that tension leaking into the chair behind you and under your bum, into the floor. And just notice how much you can sit back and relax in that chair, feel the air condition on your face. Lovely. Okay, so that is a super quick progressive muscle relaxation. Again, it's just to kind of take a 60 seconds out of a really packed or crazy day when you're thinking your emotions are starting to get ahead of you, or you're feeling super tired, or this is just going overboard. Actually, just to try and focus on something else. And there's all kinds of different types of medication. There is all types of different medication, but different types of meditation as well. So you could find what actually works for you, okay? Mindfulness, anyone heard about mindfulness? A little bit? No? Mindfulness is nothing too sophisticated. It's actually really simple. It's just a practice of paying full attention. So you're not on autopilot, you're not daydreaming, and actually paying attention to right now. So you're paying attention to the seat at your back. You're paying attention to how that seat feels under your bum, the temperature of the air condition. You might notice whether you like it, whether it's too warm, too cold, whatever. Wiggle your toes. You're paying attention to how your toes feel in your shoes right now. Okay? And the last part of it, so paying attention to what's happening right now. The third part is doing it non judgmentally. Okay? So even if you're feeling, you're lining up at KFC because you could eat mindfully, right? Let's say you rail vex with the people in front of you because they haven't decided leg or thigh and breast or wing, and they're taking their time, and someone now looking at the menu or whatever, right? You could actually notice how frustrated you feel, how hungry you feel, how irritated you are, right? And so in other words, even if it's an unpleasant thing, it's not good or bad, but you might notice your feeling is a little unpleasant, okay? There are a lot of apps and so on to help you stop and take a time out in your day or even do a little relaxation. No, two little things, three actually, really, really simple. Remember that what you eat and the quality of your gut bacteria actually has profound effects on the stuff that also shapes your mood in your central nervous system. So while that may be very yummy for many of us here, remember that you don't want to eat too much of that, right? In other words, what you eat and how often you eat is actually really important to your well-being, okay? So your neurotransmitters that impact your mood, how do you take care of them? One way is actually going for a bit of exercise. Now, you may say, I don't have time. I ain't saying you go to the gym for 2 hours, you know. It may well just be like going up the stairs or doing a little something just to keep moving as much as you can. So exercise has actually been shown to be as effective as antidepressants for light to moderate depression. So that could be part of how you help yourself. Another thing really is just getting enough sleep. Remember when you're pushing it, very often you sacrifice your sleep. And for things like, exciting things like bipolar disorder, something as simple as lack of sleep can actually trigger an episode for people. So that can be a really important part of your stress management. Everyone is different, obviously, and you'll know what works for you. One of the things that we often find with people, well, mental health, we don't really talk about it, right? No one likes to feel vulnerable. So we usually put on a good face. How are you doing? Yeah, I good, I good. You? when actually you're this close to losing it, right? So that normal, that's our culture. I understand that. That's why actually some people prefer to go to a counselor because they're not going to talk to their friends about it. As I said, maybe you're the one that everyone comes to you. You don't really want to go to them. Maybe you're making new friends on your program. You don't want to start off with problems. Sometimes finding someone outside of your life who's objective, where you could just sit down, non-judgmental, where you could talk out your thoughts, might actually be preferable for some of you, right? But anyway, we do tend to put on a brave face. But remember that a lot of the people that you are around will also be experiencing some of this and probably putting on a brave face as well. So the next time you ask your friend, you good? And they go, yeah, I good. You could kind of ask again and say, for real? Because I know I'm kind of struggling a little bit, right? So it's actually really important to try and check in with each other as much as you feel comfortable doing. I'm skipping that. So one of the things I want you to think about is, what could you be doing? And maybe your self-care is like really good, and that's great. And so think about what you want to keep going while you are starting this very demanding program. Or if you think, I don't really pay attention to this, then consider what you might add to your routine that might help you pay attention to how you're doing. Okay? Because remember, when students are struggling, particularly in your faculty, it is usually not because they are not competent. It is almost always because something else has gotten in the way of their performance. Okay? So self doubt, a lack of confidence will impact your performance just as much as you not being prepared. So while y'all are focusing on the content of learning, please try not to neglect your well being, because your well being, once it deteriorates, you'll be seeing the same issues in a way. And we want to try and get that early. Okay? So that's our email. If you wanted to email for an appointment or information, or you have, anything that you might be doing on campus, can you let me know? You could always email us. Yeah, if that would be helpful. Okay. And remember, for those of you that feel a little ambivalent about counseling and mental health, because really, what is that? Remember, it's just a conversation. And if it's helpful for you, you could book a second conversation. And if it's not so helpful for you, then your counselor hopefully will sit down and say, hey, if this really isn't for you, what are some other things that might be more helpful given, what you told me is going on for you? That is our commitment. Therapy is not for everybody, but this is a space to think about what you could be doing for yourself just to help you through. Okay? So that's it for me. Welcome. Good luck with all your programs, and I hope you have a really wonderful time while you're here. Okay? Take care.
All right. So did you guys enjoy that segment? Yes, I told you it would be interesting. I myself am an advocate for mental health, and I use animal assisted therapy in the faculty to bring animals here, where sometimes we have a day of hug a pug, right? Something different, something unique. I invite all these schools, they come out, they play with the dogs, they have a good time. We try to be different in FMS. And I always explain to people burnout is a real thing, especially in medical school. So be very mindful of that. The key to getting through stressful days too involves the art of mindfulness, right? Being present, not worrying about the past, not worrying about the future, but staying grounded in the present moment. As time progresses into your medical career or even in your education, you'll be exposed to patients that, some of these scenarios will stress you out. Whether you're trying to help them and you can't help them, or whether that you are trying to help them and they cannot be helped, maybe they have a terminal illness. How do you cope with dealing with these patients? So just food for thought, right? Stress affects us whether we are in school or not. So it brings me back to the point this afternoon where, you know, the segment for this afternoon is not a heavy segment. It's just to learn a bit about the different. Mhm. to just learn about, some of the other things we have available. So CAPS, like I said, students in crises, they usually come to me, they come to my office. We have closed door sessions. I direct them to the counselor, right? If it's emergency crisis situation, then I have to take it to a different level. But I always reach out to my students and tell them, if you're experiencing any problems, we have resources, we have faculty members here who are engaged to help provide counseling services, right? So up next on our program, we are going to learn about sign language, right? Right? And I have Miss Lejeune here, who's going to talk about the importance of sign language. We all know this sign, right? So as she comes up to the stage, let's give her a welcome. Miss Lejeune, I hand over to you. This is always one of our favorite segments that I get good reviews on. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. And I saw that little half dead kind of thing there. So here is what, this is after lunch. Everybody know is a mackerel in here? Right, how you mean? So we know that when you eat mackerel syndrome, that's kicking, right? So let's get that blood pumping again. So everybody stand for 1 minute. That mackerel done vex already. Now I rush down lunch to come across here, so the mackerel kicking me too, don't worry. So let me do a little stretch. All you're real close to each other, so I want nobody poking out anybody's eye. So stretch forward. And make it look nice. One and down, protect two. You want that blood moving? All afraid of all the colleagues see all your moves already. Come now, man. Right? Just stretch again. Nice. Anybody still sleeping? Oh gosh, man. Look at the mama guy man say no. All right, so have your seats. I'm just looking for one particular person in here, Miss Hansraj. Hi there. So I'm singling out Miss Hansraj because Miss Hansraj just reminded me how old I am. Miss Hansraj's mom and I went to school together. So I'm feeling real old. Right? So I want to thank you all and thank you again for inviting me to be part of your orientation process. Normally, I don't do this presentation by myself. I normally do it with my husband, who is profoundly deaf, and he's unable to make it today. So it would have been really an experience for you to drive it home for you one time, because you would have actually been interacting with a person who is deaf. And it would have helped clear up all the questions you would have had after. So I'm going to try my best to answer your questions after. Right, so I'm Anessa Hamilton Liger. I'm a medical social worker with the North Central Regional Health Authority. In November. It will be 17 years. How much of you younger than 17? Nobody, right? Good. So I would have started social work when some of you were 2 and 1 and 3. Right? Are they seeing this presentation properly? Yeah, it kind of dim for me. So let's a little bit about me. I have been a social worker for 17 years, since 2007. I have my bachelor's and master's in social work. I'm a volunteer sign language interpreter with North Central Regional Health Authority. And I have been married to a deaf male for the past 5 years. So what we're going to do here today is to give you an overview of what deafness is and the number of people in the world and locally that are deaf. We're going to define what deafness is. We're going to introduce to you 3 very important models of deafness and why these models tend to be in conflict. We're going to talk about communication issues that you may encounter. and the importance of understanding deafness as you all continue on in your practice, and some basic tips, of course. So what I would like you all to do, I want everybody to stay awake. So please ask me questions in between. There are no stupid questions and no stupid answers. Anybody here has a relative that is deaf? Raise your hand. Nice. So you will tell me if I'm saying something that all you can relate to, right? Every time I do this presentation, there's at least one person in here who has a deaf relative. So when you all hear the term deaf, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Can't hear. Anything else? Sign language. Anything else? Right. Lovely answers. Somebody who is unable to hear things, well, what we say typical, people say normal hearing, but normal is a real vague word, you know? If you come to me as a social worker and I ask you how you're feeling and you tell me normal, you just start a whole conversation there. What is normal? What is normal for me is not normal for you. So we move away from that terminology of normal, because the opposite of normal is, and what is abnormal? Everybody and the neighbor chicken have some abnormality. So we don't use the word normal, we use the word typical. So we should have typical hearing, but not everybody does. And most of the times, you don't even know if you have typical hearing or not unless you are tested, right? So disabling hearing loss is hearing loss greater than 40 decibels in your better hearing air if you're an adult, and 30 decibels if you're a child. Anybody understand what I just said? Yeah? Anybody else understand? I hear 1 yes over here. So let me show you what that means. A person who is able to hear a bird tweet, leaves rustling, and a tap dripping has typical hearing or normal hearing. The minute you're unable to detect certain sounds, you are experiencing some level of hearing loss. Anybody ever paid attention to the second hands ticking on their watch? It's annoying to me. I can't process it. I hate it. I don't wear watches because that second hand ticking is going to drive me nuts. But a person with typical hearing should hear it, but a person with mild hearing loss is going to have difficulty in hearing that. And a person with profound hearing loss is only going to detect some kind of sound if this person if there's just an airplane in their environment or a helicopter. They may not be able to tell you what exactly it is, but they would be able to say something, some sound is in the environment. Yes? So any one of us could be on any part of the spectrum, and we just don't know. But what is important for you all to take into consideration is that little yellow area. That is where we pick up all the phonetic sounds. So a person with mild to moderate hearing loss, they're going to have some problems picking up sounds and lip reading. Because a lot of people say that people can lip read real good. No, they can't. And I will tell you all can't either. So let me do a little example for you all. Please tell me what I'm saying. What did I just say? I'm going to do it again. What I'm hearing? Bowl. Who else? Home. What else? I hear boy. What else? Somebody else. Say it. I promise I won't bite. I had lunch. Yeah. Anybody else have any different answer? I actually said more. Yeah? So you see how many different responses I get? So imagine I just start. All you're following anything I just said there? And that is where the distortion comes with hearing loss. So sometimes we think they go lip read. So That is annoying to a deaf person. Talking slower distorts what you're trying to say even more. Right? So everybody understands this diagram? So imagine you have a baby and you have profound hearing loss, and that baby is screaming on the top of their lungs. They would notice the actions. They would not hear sound. I had an experience of a friend of mine. She's deaf. She fell while she was pregnant. And she asked me to come with her in the emergency room. And the doctor is there doing the ultrasound, and she's looking at me. And I'm looking at her. And she's doing me this, and I'm doing her this. And she's like, are you hearing the heartbeat? Remember, I cannot hear. I kept myself together until I reached home, and I reached home, I elbow along the place. Because, you know, as hearing people, we want to hear this baby's heartbeat, right? And she was telling me, I can't hear it, so you have to tell me what you're hearing. That is not something that we always take into consideration when we have typical hearing. So when I heard the baby's heartbeat, now I'm actually giving her the beat by touching her. I would have never thought about that until I had that experience. Yeah? And it's something to take into consideration, because just now you're going to become my colleagues and you all are going to have these experiences. So there are 432 million adults and 34 million children who have hearing loss below 40. So that is right under the watch, the wristwatch. Anything below that is considered disabling hearing loss. Right? And they're saying that 1.1 billion people are at risk of losing their hearing due to exposure to noise in recreational settings. So all of us who keep our headphones on 24/7, you're at risk. You're at risk. And the WHO projects by 2050, 1 in 4 persons will experience mild to profound hearing loss. So that means by 2050, 700 million people worldwide. So if we want to do a little 1 in 4 here, if I ask you all to get into groups of 4, it's going to be a lot of you all who may or may not experience hearing loss. So when I say the word deaf, anybody find the word deaf sounds very harsh and disrespectful? I hear a whisper. Yeah? Some people find it very, very unsettling and disrespectful. But for persons in the deaf and hard of hearing community, they don't like the word hearing impaired. Because hearing impaired defines them by what they cannot do. So my husband would say, my hearing is not impaired. I don't have it. I don't have no hearing. So it's not impaired. It's not broken. It's gone. Right? So he's saying deaf helps me to identify with my diagnosis, but also with my culture, with a community. So when you say hearing impaired, you define me by what I cannot do. So for example, I can't swim. Would you walk up to me and say, I'm swimming impaired? It doesn't make sense, right? So he's saying, why are you defining me by what I cannot do? So the deaf who use sign language as part of their everyday communication experience, they spell deaf with a capital D. And I've had many a mediation session with doctors and patients, because the doctor is hearing impaired and the deaf person says, I'm not hearing impaired, I'm deaf. And it's a big thing, no, this is the correct term. And the deaf person saying, you can't tell me what's the correct term to define myself. And it's a big bacchanal. I said, and you're feeling sick, can we just get this on with? But those are the arguments that deaf persons have in the medical setting. And that's because you have been taught that hearing impaired is the proper term. But that is what we call the medical model. And we have moved away from the medical model and we are now at the human rights and cultural model. So deafness with a common D is the medical condition, the absence of hearing or disabling hearing loss. The minute you see a person put capital D, know that they are part of a community and they do not see deafness as a deficit. They see it as part of their identity. So we also use the term hard of hearing. Now, who grew up with your parents using that as a negative term? Yeah. You hard of hearing or what? You're no longer calling you? So hearing persons tend to be kind of uncomfortable with these phrases because it has been used negatively towards us. But for persons who are deaf, they prefer it. So a person who is hard of hearing only hears sounds within a certain frequency. So I have a friend, she only hears high sounds, and her sister only hears low sounds. And they both play instruments. So when I was meeting them, they said, guess who is who? I just looked at the instrument they played. One played the violin and one played the cello. And it was amazing to see how well they played the instrument, right? So sometimes you may meet somebody who has what you would call a muffled speech or a speech impairment, and you'd want to know why you're talking funny so. And had my husband been here today, you all would have thought he was Jamaican, because he has a muffled voice accent as well. So anytime he's talking to people, so what part of Jamaica are you from? Grandi. You understand? They are unable to hear their own voices. So they are not able to pick up if they're speaking too fast, if they're speaking too slow. And they may also rely on hearing aids and lip reading. And they normally use sign language as speech and speech as ways of communication. So a person may be identifying as deaf, but they speak. They may identify as deaf, but they may not use sign language. They will tell you, I prefer to write. That in itself, we will get to learn too. So according to the census in 2011 was 13 years ago, there are approximately 6,217 people living with some measure of hearing loss in Trinidad. The deaf say all you lie is more. Right? So there are people with some measure of hearing loss. That don't mean they identify as deaf. And that don't mean that they are signing. Tell me if you understand. So some people would say, I have a little hearing problem. When you, as a doctor, hear someone says that, you need to find out, have you been tested yet? Because you need to know what measure of hearing loss they have to know what is the best form of communication to use with them. So as doctors, most likely you're going to be taught that deafness is a functional loss, a handicap, or impairment that requires medical intervention to increase somebody's quality of life. And you may be taught that the best way to work with a deaf person is to give them a hearing aid or to do cochlear implantation. Cochlear implantation is very expensive and it is done abroad. But the social model tells us nothing is wrong with a deaf person. Something is wrong with society. You all can't accommodate us. We are not the problem. You are. Your environment cannot facilitate me, and that's why I'm not having a proper quality of life. And the cultural models say, I don't have hearing loss. I have acquired deafness. So you see the difference? You see it as a loss. They see it as I gained something. And that's where the conundrum does be sometimes when people talking. Because if you are trained to see this as a loss, an impairment, a disability, and they see it as this is part of a community and my identity, you may not always be on the same page. Right? And while you all are focusing on getting a device to improve their hearing, the deaf community will focus on developing sign language as their form of communication. And of course, they will encourage as much people as possible to learn sign language. Don't force me to conform to what you do. Learn what I do. So what is communication? Everybody would have gotten the Merriam-Webster Medical Dictionary on the list, right, of books to buy. Check your book list. Yep, it's there. Yeah. So they would tell you that communication is the exchange of information between individuals through a common system of signs, symbols, and behavior. So if I am using sign language and you are speaking, we probably not communicating effectively, right? What do you think? I hear any Macawell seeping through again. You know? So tell me, if I cannot hear and I'm using sign and you are speaking to me, there's a possibility of miscommunication, not so? Yeah. So if I cannot understand you and you cannot understand me, how are you diagnosing me? Think about it. How are you going to diagnose me? How are you going to make sure that I'm managing my illness properly? How are you going to make sure that I'm adhering to my medication regime properly? So some of the issues that the deaf face, they have altered care utilization patterns because the communication is difficult with physicians. And it, of course, it would lead to a misunderstanding. So to physicians, they tend to be a silent group. I sat in a presentation about a year ago where a dentist, a medical lecturer, she spoke about the empty chair in the dental school. Deaf persons have poor dental care practices because there's no way to communicate with the dentist when they're upon the mask. Right? So some people just say, well, to be safe, I will write to a deaf person. We will keep the communication going. So let me give you an example. You may say to a person, you may go home next week. But because the word may was used and not may be, you just told the person they're going home in May. That is how it could be interpreted. I have this thing, English is a real funny language. You can say one thing, I could have a myriad of meaning. And to a person that is born deaf, English is not their first language, sign is. So you would think we will communicate on that level because we both know English. The structure of sign language is not the structure of standard English. So you saying you may go home next week and they are interpreting you're going to go home in May. We write in, right? But there's still miscommunication. And then, of course, we know the term deaf and dumb, right? Definitely don't use that with a deaf person. Trust me, it would not end well. Most people who have hearing loss, they don't use speech, but that doesn't mean that they are mute. Mute means without sound, right? If you're muting the TV, you take off all your sound. Deaf people don't know volume, so they tend to be louder than the average person if they are using sound at all. And the whole narrative of deaf and dumb, what does dumb mean to the average person? So they have reinforced deaf and dumb because if you're using sign clearly, you can't talk and clearly, you can't understand English. So you're stupid with it. So the deaf started a whole movement where they had jerseys, deaf and smart, and people wasn't getting it at all. Right? And these are some of the notions that would have come through the medical model of deafness. And that's because unless you fix it, something is wrong. And of course, because you cannot write in standard English, we think that your intelligence is inferior. Right? So let's go back to terminologies. According to the medical model, you're going to hear hearing loss and hearing impaired. But according to the human rights model, it's acquired deafness. The medical model would say hearing impaired. The deaf would say deaf and hard of hearing. And of course, you would say normal hearing, and persons who are human rights informed would say typical hearing. But seriously, all you really find that is a big deal? To a deaf person, loss or impaired means broken, substandard, defective, wrong, bad, problematic. And as we discussed before, the opposite of normal is? And of course, the lip reading thing. So we realize Paul looked like ball and boy. Only 30 to 40% of English speech songs are visible on your lips. That has been researched. 30 to 40%. So imagine talking to a patient about their illness. and they're not understanding 3/4 of what you're saying. That's a topic, and that's a concern there because you're not diagnosing properly. You're not sure if they're grasping the information. And then you think that lip reading only focuses on your mouth, right? So I'm going to do a sign. Happy. Do I look happy? You're sick, right? Happy. So when you're looking at speech reading, I could be afraid I'm talking to you and I'm giving you very complimentary information, but you're reading the body language. And we as hearing people do that all the time. I'm real happy to see you. Oh, really? You understand? So this person is unable to hear, so they're going to read your body cues. They're going to know if you're uncomfortable with them. They're going to know if you don't want to see them, because sometimes this patient hearing impaired. They're reading that off of you already. They ain't going to be cooperative at all because you already set the tone of, hey, don't give me no problem, city. And it has happened. So when you're thinking of communicating with a deaf person, your body language is important. You raise your eyebrow. Sometimes you don't even know you raise your eyebrow, but then pick it up. A lot of people think that, hey, let her just come with somebody and I will talk to them. I will talk to the relative and get a sense of what is going on. Because you assume that they live with people. Right? And you assume that the family could sign. A lot of deaf persons in Trinidad and Tobago live in families that don't sign at all. So imagine communication, poor communication happening, and you're going to take the history from the relative that may not know. And sometimes the relatives know sign language, but they do not know it to the point of now translating what they know into medical information. So again, two hearing persons communicating about a deaf person, and we still have miscommunication happening. Right? So think about this. A minor is brought into PEDS emergency after a violent outburst at home. The relatives don't use sign language and they are fed up of her outbursts and you cannot communicate with the patient. So the relatives claiming she going mad. And she's trying to explain to them she's being sexually abused by her relative's partner. But the relative thinking is jealous, she jealous. So they're going to refer this child to psychiatry. And based on the history given by the relatives alone, who are unable to communicate effectively, we're going to have a misdiagnosis. So that's one thing. I tend to get called as a social worker when we are treating with persons who may be ill. And they tend to call me when somebody is, a deaf person is diagnosed with a psychiatric illness. And my first question is, where did you get your history from? Well, the relative or secondary relative sign, we don't know. I said, so how you can get history from somebody who can't sign? So we had to start all over when I get involved. No, I need to talk to this person. And that's how easy miscommunication happens with the deaf. I did a research in 2015 about non-communicable diseases in the deaf community. 10 of them had diabetes. What is diabetes? I don't know. I went to the hospital because my chest was hurting. I went to the hospital because I was feeling tired. And I find out I have diabetes. They could not explain to me what diabetes was. That's happening right here in Trinidad. So imagine you have diabetes and you hand them a pamphlet and English is not their first language. You give them the information, but they still can't access the information properly. And another social worker would have done research in 2009, and here's what children said. I went to the doctor with my mother, and my mother wasn't able to interpret, and she tell the doctor what happened to me without speaking to me. I got an injection, and I don't understand why. I felt at a loss because my parents were not able to communicate my feelings. Did I scare anybody yet? I hope not. because this presentation is not to scare you, but to bring you to the reality of walking into medicine and having this very unique population to work with. And I'm telling you, before 5 years of practicing medicine, you're going to have a deaf client because they just get sick. They have babies, healthy hearing babies most times. So you're going to end up most likely interacting with a deaf client. And he goes, I remember that girl who make me stand up and stretch and thing in first year. I remember she did tell me about this. So your handbook of clinical and examination practice skills tells you to make eye contact, don't shout, and let me show you why. It looks aggressive, doesn't it? And it will be met with the same energy. They cannot hear, so they are reading your body language. So when you shout, they see it as aggression. So they are going to respond with the same aggression. Speak clearly, but not slowly. We went through that just now, right? That doesn't help. And don't exaggerate your oral or facial movements. This promotes what we call oralism. It does not promote effective communication. What you should do is ask the patient, how do you prefer to communicate? Some of them write, some of them sign, some of them speak. But when you are giving pertinent information, you have to make sure that the patient is comfortable with the mode of communication. Most times, the deaf will walk with a pen and paper, especially when they're coming to the hospital. So you should walk with pen and paper as well, just to be prepared. Respect a patient's desire to discuss with or without their hearing relative present. Because there are some things that they may not want to tell you in front of their relatives. There are things I know about deaf people that their family should know, and I'm sworn to secrecy. And sometimes deaf adults may bring their children to interpret because their children are bilingual at birth. Their children are learning to sign while they are learning to talk. And as adults, they are entitled to their privacy, right? And if the relative is there, always ask the relative, how well can you sign? Don't assume that the relative could sign because they are present. And with children, most of the times, children from the Cascade School for the Deaf, the house mothers may come, accompany them to hospital if there's a situation. That is a real good thing. But what if that issue is happening at the school? They're not going to tell you. What if the person who is interpreting is the person who is causing the problem? You're not going to get a proper history. So if you want to use writing, keep your jargons simple. Keep it simple. I don't know if you all know about the KISS principle. Keep it sweet and simple. Explain diagnoses properly. I hope all of you could draw, because you definitely would need to draw for a deaf person. Drawings help if you're talking about medication 3 times a day with meals. I could eat breakfast at 9, lunch at 10, and supper at 6. That's 3 times a day, right? Versus 8 every 8 hours. Be very clear. And if you have to draw a clock, do it. You want to make sure that the information is clear. You're writing, so we have a joke about doctors and the handwriting, right? Make sure that your handwriting is clear, so they too can go and do their own research. If you ever have to use the word may, use the word maybe. Maybe is clearer for them. So let me give you examples. You remember the name of the tablet? Because hearing people, let's say, is the white one. Almost all the tablets white. So it's not going to help us. And they may remember the name of their tablet, mind you. So you take your tablets, when? What time? Did you ever miss a time? You're trying to now find out about adherence. How do you feel after? You're finding out about the side effects. Do you itch? Do you vomit? Do you have diarrhea? Do you have dizziness? Can you breathe after? You're now checking to see if they are allergic to any medication. And of course, at Eric Williams right now, there are two of us that could sign. One is in the lab and I am at National Organ Transplant Unit. If you ever encounter a deaf patient, don't be afraid. Call us in and we will provide some support. Sign language is not universal. So there may be instances where the deaf person is using signs that we don't know because with every generation, signs change. There is the standard and then there is the variation, the dialects now. But make sure that the patient wants an interpreter. There are some deaf people who would not want me in the same room because I'm married to a deaf man. Because confidentiality for them is not the same as it is for us. So they believe if I know, he knows. But make sure and ask them if they want an interpreter. You call myself or you call the person at the lab. And of course, I'd recommend you learn sign language, right? And what I would suggest to you all is find a group or find a course that is tailored to medicine. You learn the basics, but they also help you to know how to do a history, a proper history taking, how you get certain kinds of information from your patient. But just know this, even if you're formally taught, there's always somebody who you wouldn't understand. There are few people that I don't, right? Always seek guidance as you proceed because some concepts would be tough to explain. Thank you all for your time. And now I'll feel your questions. Any questions to me? Has the Macawell reached back? Any questions? So in the event, oh, sorry. Yes, Dr. Alcock. That's right. So every country has a different sign language code. So a lot of times, well, in Trinidad, the basic that you are taught is American Sign Language, but there's also Trinidadian Sign Language. And there are some signs in the American Sign Language code that is not used in Trinidad. We have developed our own. And here's the thing with American Sign Language. There's Black American Sign Language. There's Latino American Sign Language. There are 3 signs for Black Panther, depending on who you interact with. So we teach American Sign Language at the School for the Deaf, but as you interact with your environment, you realize which signs make contextual sense and which signs don't. So when I sign a mix of American Sign Language and Trinidadian Sign Language. American Sign Language don't have a sign for chow. They don't have a sign for cricket and they don't have a sign for black cake and sorrel. We developed that for ourselves. We have found a way to translate our environment into sign language. What is a sign for? Black cake. Or sometimes they say rum cake. Yeah, and depending on how strong the ding is, they might say rum cake. Yeah, doubles. Doubles. Any signs again you all want to know? What? Roti. Jab, jab. Jab, jab. Yeah. So they would look at the movement of the character and they would do a sign. Juve. J, mud. Okay. Of course, they have a sign for bake and shark. Bake and shark. Bake and shark. Shark went through the water, right? Yeah. They go flip it. They go tell you it's bake and shark. You always put the starch first. They know it. They know it. Any other signs? So in the event you all want to learn sign language, I don't teach. I just let you all know. My husband and I, however, would have developed a sign language course for medical students. When he was a patient here, he gave everybody help. I'm not going to lie, I was embarrassed. Thankfully, we weren't married yet. But he asked when we went to do x-rays, because he got into an accident and broke his leg. He said, why does she have to leave what she's doing to help you? You should know this yourself. So what we try to do is to encourage persons. When an interpreter is in a setting with you and a patient, the interpreter is in control. So she could speed up your interaction or she could slow it down. And at times that could be very, very uncomfortable for a medical practitioner. So if you know it yourself, you eliminate that person altogether. And trust me, if you work in emergency and a deaf person know you could sign, everybody is going to figure out who you are. They will explain you to a T. So this person, the next deaf person who comes to emergency is going to look for you. There are people who showed up at my office with my name. I don't know them from Adam or Eve. With my name, she could sign. So you have an opportunity to really stand out in your medical practice if you learn sign language. Yes? Any other signs or any other questions before I leave? And here's the beautiful thing about Trinidad. If you were doing your medical degree in Jamaica, you needed to learn sign language in order to graduate. They actually have a module. You had to be able to, if you're doing dent, if you're doing pharmacy, anything, you had to do that module in sign language in order to graduate. They want to make sure that you're competent enough to interact with a deaf client, a deaf patient before you leave, right? So I guess there are no more questions. Going once. Yes? Student? Study? Person? You're studying, you're reading all the time. Person? Yes, love? The deaf person will adapt to you. What is always important is you know your ABCs, right? So a deaf person will know ASL. And most of the times, a lot of the countries use the ASL manual. They use the alphabet. So they teach you that no matter what. So that is the basis of you signing. So if you realize there's confusion, because they're very expressive, if you realize there's a confusion, they will tell you spell it. So you may use a sign that they don't know, they'll ask you to spell it and they will show you what sign they know. Yeah, but that's a really good question. Yeah, the American Sign Language alphabet and the British Sign Language alphabet is different. With the British Sign Language alphabet, you need both hands. With the American Sign Language alphabet, you just need one hand. But here's the thing, deaf people will develop a code in order to communicate on the spot. You may be a bit lost, but they are going to communicate with each other. And what is really important, if a deaf person comes with another deaf person, and the person that they come with could speak, trust, they'll be a better interpreter than a hearing one. They will follow what their person is trying to say. Yep. Any more questions? Good. Yes, love? All right. So the course is 7 weeks, 2 days a week. And what we do, we take you through the basics. But as we go through the basics, we teach you how to use the language in medicine. And then there are 2 sessions where we ask you for jargons that you would use every day in medicine, and we teach you how to use the jargons. And then we bring in other deaf people for you to interact with So you would see the variations in the language, because my husband would teach you formal ASL and he would show you the differences, but showing you it and having you interact with a deaf person is two different things. That's why it's unfortunate he couldn't be here today. Because he would have had, believe me, I could sit down and he would have done his presentation with his eyes closed, because we do this very often. But I would tell you all, it would be an honor to see doctors, more doctors signing. It would be, we would be happy. I would get to stay home sometimes. You know, it would be interesting to see more doctors signing, because we really want to improve the healthcare and management of deaf patients. So if we could see more doctors signing, that would really be a plus. And a little plug, it looks very good on your resume, especially if you want to travel to practice. It looks very good. Going once, going twice. Any more questions? So when you interact with a deaf person for the first time, you spell your name, and after 1 or 2 interactions, they give you a name sign. So my name is the letter A by my dimple. So if you ask a deaf person, you know Anessa, she hearing, she work in Mount Hope, she married to Jamal. By the time they ask you all that questions, you realize, yes, they know who I am, right? But as you interact with deaf persons, they find something very distinct about you that they give you as a name sign. I didn't pick up my one dimple with a stand out to them. But the letter A by my dimple is my name. Any more questions? So once again, I'd like to thank you all for your attention. And I wish you all the best in your years of study. I will see 1 or 2 of you on the corridor. I want to wish you all success. Congratulations on reaching this far. Congratulations on your exam results. You have a question? Right. And we hope to see you all in the next 5 to 6 years walking around with your stethoscopes. Thank you.
Right. So as I told you all, that would be interesting. I see you all asking questions and saying, liking it. We're almost to the end of the day. We just have a little more crucial information to disseminate to you guys. And then before you know it, some of you all will be going on your final tours. And then it would be the end of our first day of orientation, right? So I would like to thank Mr. Jan. Let's give her a round of applause. Again. How are we doing it in sign language? Kind of waking us up too, right? I like it. I like it. Right? So our next segment is going to talk about student accounts. Sometimes you guys have a lot of queries on accounts, on fees, on a wide range of queries related to those things. We have with us Mrs. Carolyn Gooding and her team. Ms. Gooding is the Senior Financial Manager of Student Accounts and Receivables at the bursary. So I know some of you all may have a lot of questions for her. So we'll allow her to present this afternoon, and then she will facilitate any questions and answers, right? Thank you.
Thank you, Rihanna. Good afternoon and congratulations. As Rihanna said, I'm Carolyn Gooding, the Senior Financial Manager of the Bursary Student Accounts and Receivables section. With me today is Mrs. Cora Howard, one of our accounting supervisors with responsibility for your faculty. And I would like my two members to stand, please. Please get to know these two gentlemen very well. Brandon Mangray in the blue and Nicholas Ramratan. These are the two members of our bursary team who are responsible for your student accounts. So please remember the names and we'll share with you their contact information as we go through. So we are located at the Lloyd Braffett Student Administration Building on the ground floor. So by now, you would all know these 7 steps in your registration process. Today, we want to focus on step 5 and step 7. Now, I know the deadline for the first installment was yesterday, so you would have all been familiar or have been familiar with step 5, enrolling in FEPE. Can I see by a show of hands those of you who have already enrolled in FEPE and gotten your financial clearance? Good, good. Wish I could have had the whole room, your hands up, but good. So financial clearance, as you will see, is very, very important for you in all aspects of you being able to access both services and your course material. Step 7 is maintaining financial clearance, and you do this by the submission of your registration documents, which we will go through with you. So what's in store for you today? We're going to talk about fees, fee pay, maintaining financial clearance, and a few quick notes on how you can finance your degree, just in case you don't have it all down yet. So fees. Your fees comprise your compulsory fees, tuition fees, whole fees, if it's applicable to you, the $35 fee pay enrollment fee. So your compulsory fees, as listed there, total $1,465 in your first year. Now, if for some reason you would have been here, say doing a certificate program or something, you would have already paid for your ID card and caution money. Do we have anybody here in an instance like that? In which case I'll skip that part. Okay, so if you do, when you're submitting your registration documents to us, you include a copy of your ID card, and hopefully it wasn't too very long ago that you would have done that. So it will be one of these recent ones with the barcode at the front. You submit a copy of that, and we will adjust your fees accordingly for that fee. Caution money, if you paid it already, you can request that it be transferred from your previous program to this program. And what you do is you complete the caution money forms, which are available online, and submit that to us, and we will adjust your account with those fees. Now, the compulsory fees are payable once per year for the academic year, usually in that first semester. So that's $1,465. Next year, you will pay $1,465 less the ID card and the caution money. All right? So these are just the fees for nationals of Trinidad and Tobago who are sponsored by the government of Trinidad and Tobago. So those are the total fees due for all of the programs. These are available in our financial information booklet, which are on our website. So we're just skimming through to give you an idea of what it looks like. Nationals of contributing countries, your fees are in US dollars as listed there. And nationals of other countries, non-campus contributing countries, these are your fees listed here. Repeat fees. Maybe you may not need to know this, but we'll still go through. These are the repeat fees for all of the programs, MBBS, DDS, and DVM. And remedial fees. So we move to whole fees. So this year, I skipped one. This year, the following halls are operational. Joyce Gibson Innes Hall, which is right here in Mount Hope. Canada Hall, which is on campus. Freedom Hall, which was reopened this year. And the Sir Arthur Lewis Hall at St. John's Road in St. Augustine. Fee pay. So FeePay is a payment plan module that is accessed through My Secure Area, and it is available to all students. So whether you're paying all of your fees upfront or not, Fee pay is applicable to you because it is the way that you get financial clearance. So you need to go through and make sure that you tick that box that says you accept the terms and conditions so that you can get your financial clearance. The enrollment fee of $35 is payable every semester on enrollment. So please, if you take away nothing else this afternoon from what we see, please enroll in fee pay. It's the only way that you get financial clearance. So financial clearance is the term used to communicate to you that you have met all your financial obligations to the university by one, submitting your registration documents, which we will go through a little later, paying your fees in full. Paying your fees in full. If your fees are not paid in full, unfortunately, there are implications for you as we come down to later on in the semester, close to exams. And of course, maintaining your expected fee payments based on the installments that you are supposed to be paying. So financial clearance grants access to a number of services, such as your UE student ID card. How many of you have your ID card already? Show of hands. Okay, so hopefully it's not that you haven't gotten financial clearance yet, right? Health services unit, to My Secure area where you will need to go to make these payments, to the sporting facilities on campus, such as your gym, tennis court, and your swimming pool, your UE parking pass, My e-learning, which is where you will get access to all of your course materials and be able to submit your course assessments, access to examinations, access to library services, and when you are completed with the program, access to graduation. So the payment plan, there are two categories. We have sponsored students and non-sponsored students. So sponsored students will be those of you who have, for instance, gotten a scholarship or national bursary. You are gate funded. And the non-sponsored students are, of course, those who are financing yourself. So the installment dates for the two categories are the same. It would have been the first installment was the 31st of August on Saturday. The second installment is due on the 30th of September, and the third installment on the 31st of October. Please take note of these important dates. The percentage of fees due for the first and second installment is 15%, and the third installment is 70%. Now, you don't have to remember all of this. The system is going to calculate it for you. For non-sponsored students, the first installment is 40% and 30% each for the second and third. And it's the same for semester 2. So there is the option to pay all of your fees upfront. You can certainly do that. But the key thing, again, is to make sure that you enroll in fee pay. So yes, you could pay all your fees, but please tick that box that says you agree to the terms and conditions so that you can get financial clearance. Next. So again, we underscore the importance of enrolling in fee pay in that payment plan. And just to let you know that the system calculates the installments based on the balance on your account. That balance includes your compulsory fees, your tuition fees, and the fee pay enrollment fee. Your whole fees you pay separately. Maintaining financial clearance. How do you do this? You do this by submitting your registration documents on time. How many of you have already submitted your registration documents? Should see the whole room. Okay, please, I encourage you to submit your documents on time, your registration documents. We're going to go through with you what your registration documents are. Kudos to those of you who have already submitted. You got an early start on it so that we'll be able to process your documents early. You also maintain financial clearance by ensuring that the required installments are paid by the stipulated due dates. And those due dates, again, would have been 31st August, 30th of September, and the 31st of October. All right. So how can you make your payments? You can make your payments. There are a number of payment options. You can do so via My Secure Area, through FeePay, using a credit card or a debit chip card. A proof of payment is not required because once you use this option, the system instantaneously updates your student account. You can pay at any branch of Republic Bank using the UE student deposit slip. And I want to underscore here, using the UE deposit slip, not the open campus or the global campus deposit slip. Please use the blue and white UE deposit slips. The front and back copy of that deposit slip must be submitted to us via e-courier with your other documents so that we'll be able to match your payment to your student account. You can also pay using online interbank transfers using online banking. And for Republic Bank customers, UE is now a vendor with Republic Bank, so very easy. Proof of transfer must be submitted to us via e-courier. Again, we need to get your proof of payment so that we'll know that the payment is applicable to you. And for foreign students, you have the payment option via wire transfer. And again, to submit your proof of transfer via e-courier. Submission of documents. So let me now hand over to Mrs. Howard, who will go through this part of the presentation with you. And on behalf of the bursary team, I really wish you all the best on your journey.
Thank you, Mrs. Gooding. All right, so on the screen, we have a list of the documents that need to be submitted to e-courier. A signed fee assessment invoice. We have a template of what that looks like, so we'll see it on the next slide. A signed eGate application. If you're a recipient of a scholarship, you need to submit a copy of that letter to us. If you are a recipient of National Bursary or JRTT scholarship, it has to be the official university support letter, right? So if you do not have that, we encourage you to apply for GATE and submit the GATE application to us. And of course, proof of payment. If you pay online, like was said before, you don't need to submit a copy to us, but any other means of payment, ensure that you submit it to us via e-courier. If you are a student from Barbados as well, you have to submit a copy of your national ID when you're submitting your documents. So important, regional students, pay attention to the level of funding covered by your government, as there may be additional fees that you may have to cover, right? So for example, St. Vincent, you may have to cover your compulsory fees. Bahamas, 40% of the tuition fees covered by you, along with your compulsory fees, yep? And we also have here generally costs for repeats are not covered by the government. So just pay attention to that for our regional students. So this is an example of what what the fee assessment invoice would look like. We also refer to this as the fee sheet. We ask that you sign where the blue box is in the bottom for student signature. It has to be your actual signature and not a typed signature, right? We also have a template of the registration roadmap, so you could have an idea of where you access the fee sheet. It's number 2. And for those of you who have not yet enrolled in FeePay, it would be number 3. Yeah? So this is what the eGate application should look like. So if you submitted your documents and what you submitted did not look like that, we would not accept the documents, right? So it has to be the actual signed eGate application. It doesn't have to be, it should not be, let me say, it should not be the email confirming your means read, right? So once you have applied for GATE, submit a signed copy of this eGate application to us along with your signed fee sheet. The signature, which is on your eGate application, should match that which is on the fee sheet as well. And we recommend you sign on the top right-hand corner of the document, but once you sign anywhere that is blank and clear, like on the second page, we would also accept it. So this is an example for those of you who are recipients of scholarships, the national bursaries. We just have a template of what the letter would look like. So e-courier, just a note, all documents must be submitted to the bursary via e-courier. So no other means, no other student accounts email. Don't looking for our personal emails and sending it to us. It must be submitted via eCourier. The link for eCourier could be found on our bursary website. If you scroll, how many of y'all have visited our webpage? Nobody? Get familiar with it, right? So all of the information that we are sharing today, you'd find on that page. If you scroll to the bottom of the home page, there's an icon to the bottom which says for students, and you could access all relevant information, right? So you'll also see an icon that says eCourier, and it would give you 2 links where the documents need to be submitted, one for registration documents. The second one says late documents, late pay, which essentially is, let me say, if the 3rd installment has passed and you never submitted your documents, then you want to submit your documents there, right? So we ask that when you are submitting your documents, you submit it as one PDF attachment. So not numerous documents, please. We would send it back to you, right? And you just delay in the process. So let's get it right the first time. One PDF attachment with all the documents that were listed prior, and you're renaming the document with your ID number, your name, and the abbreviation for your faculty, which would be FMS. When you're first using eCourier, the page would ask you for information such as your contact number and email address. Make sure that you're using your UE student email address. If you do not, we would send the package back to you, right? Which means that we never received it and your account would never be updated. So please remember that. Submitting all your registration documents via eCourier, submitting as one PDF attachment, and using your UE student email. So in summary, what are your responsibilities? First of all, enroll in FEPE to gain financial clearance. No other means you would get financial clearance. You must enroll in FEPE, right? Second is submit all your required financial documents to us and pay your fees by the agreed due dates to maintain financial clearance. Failure to do this because, hey, I'm not going to take on the bursary and I won't bother with them, right? Right? If you fail to do this, it may result in an accounts receivable hold. If you have friends who went through the system before, you would hear that it's not very nice. An AR hold means basically that your financial clearance has been removed, which means that you would not be able to register for the next semester. You would not have access to My eLearning. You would not have access to your exams. You would not be able to view your examination results. You may not be able to graduate, and you would not have access to other services like health services, Alma Jordan Library, status letter. I'm not trying to scare anybody, right? But it is important that you maintain your financial clearance, because if you don't, you may get an AR hold and it just adds stress to the whole system for you, the students, and also for us at the bursary. So most importantly, one, enroll in FEPE, and secondly, maintain that financial clearance by submitting your documents and making your payments on time and submitting your documents so we are aware that, okay, the relevant documents were submitted. So coming down to the end of the presentation, we're just going to skim through financing your degree. Most of you would already know how you finance in your degree. The most popular one is GATE, and we have a GATE representative who will take you through that process. You also have the option for help loans. There's the option for bursaries and scholarships, and then, of course, self-funded, right? So if you're applying for GATE, what we encourage you to do, you should have already applied. If you haven't, I wouldn't say it's too late. It's never too late. But we encourage you to apply early, because what it means is that it allows for you to get your means rate confirmed early enough. So you know, okay, what portion of your fees you're expected to pay. If you come and you apply too late, close to your exams, you don't have your means rate yet, you don't know how much you have to pay, we don't know how much GATE paying, and then we're expecting you to pay everything which is on your account, right? So apply for GATE as early as you can, and once you've applied, submit those documents to us. You don't need to wait until you get your means rate. Once you've applied, submit your documents, but continue to check your email because sometimes the gate office would reach out to you and say, okay, a correction is required or you need to make an adjustment. So whilst you think you have a valid gate application, gate reject or deny it, and you're in problems, right? So continue to track the status of your application until it reaches to the stage of means confirmed. So we also have here that UE normally offers scholarships as well and bursaries. So you could liaise with Financial Advisory Services, which is the Division of Student Services and Development at the STA campus. So I spoke earlier about our bursary website. This is what the homepage would look like. You could also find contact information for everybody in the bursary on the Contact Us page that's on top here next to Student Services. And we are located, like was said earlier, in the Lloyd Brathwaite Student Administration building on the ground floor. You could always visit us. Alternatively, we ask that you reach out to us via the bursary service desk, right? So depends on the type of message you're saying, how urgent it is, would determine how you could reach out to us. So we have a summary video here. I'll try to see if it would show. There's sound, but it's not coming through the speakers. But this is an example, just to recap what we did. The fee sheets showing you where you should sign, as well as the gate application form. These are important steps to note, as well as your payment methods. So you could pay online via FeePay or at the bank. This is what the eCourier page would look like and where you insert the relevant information. And our bursary service desk is the only means by which you get onto us. So this brings us to the end of the presentation. So for those who have not done what they're supposed to do, I hope you know now more clearly what is expected of you and that you'll operate inside of it. So thank you.
All right, thank you to Mrs. Gooding and her team. Do we have any questions for them as we have them here today? How long does it take for the e-courier to get back to you?
Can you give me a little more detail on the question? When you ask how long it takes to get back to you? Yeah. We download documents every day, but do you mean, tell me what you mean. Okay, so remember earlier in the presentation, I asked if there's one thing you take away from what we said today, how do you get financial clearance? By enrolling in FeePay. Right, so if you know, right, but when you enroll in FeePay, that's how you get financial clearance. You maintain financial clearance by submitting your registration documents. So as long as you would have enrolled in FeePay, you would have financial clearance. If you don't, please contact us, yeah? Because sometimes persons try to go on after they have made their payments. There are no charges on your account so that you wouldn't be able to enroll in FeePay, all right? Just an important point about eCourier, if you've submitted your documents, and please keep checking that email address, your UE email address for any messages, because if there's any discrepancy with the documents you've submitted, we will respond to you and let you know what is needed to correct them, okay?
The next question. Go ahead.
Yes, no, or you can leave it for the next semester and it will roll into your fees for the next semester, yeah? Hi, good afternoon. Yes, it would be. Yes, it would be. The installment dates apply to everybody, all students, because the payment plan is for all students. Yeah. So even if you're paying, right, you're not paying all your fees up front. Once you enroll in the payment plan, you are expected to pay your fees according to the schedule. You can pay more than fee pay is recommended. You can certainly do that by just changing the amount. Yeah. Okay, so you submitted your registration documents already? Okay, so send a copy of the ID card into eCourier to us. But then you don't have an ID card? You have an ID card? But why you don't have a copy?
Copy it.
Your ID card lost. That's what you're saying? You lost your ID card? Well, then you'll have to pay for a replacement ID card. And when you get it, well, you would have paid already. Yeah. Yes? You're not sure if you use your... Okay. When did you send that? Okay, well, those would have been open, so you should check eCourier to see if you would have gotten a response from us. The documents would not have been accepted, so I would say yes if you are sure that you didn't use your UE email address to resubmit it using your UE email address. No, it would have been opened already. If you said it was a few weeks ago, we would have opened it and responded to you, indicating that it would not have been accepted if you did not use your UE email address. Yeah, you can call Mr. Mangre or Mr. Ramratan at, what's the extension? 84173, and just have them double check that for you. Okay, somebody here had a question. Thing. Mm-hmm. Yes, the eCourier website. Yes, yeah, that's where we'll correspond with you. Yes? It may take a bit longer to do what? We start processing documents after the registration period has ended. So once you've submitted your documents and everything is in order, you will start seeing your gate being applied to your account. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Yes, you enroll in fee pay every semester. Yeah? Right. So Mrs. Howard would have gone through that with you. So just to recap, it's a copy of your signed fee sheet, your signed eGate application form, so you're signing to the top right, and a copy of your proof of payment. If you're a local student. If you're a regional student, you'll send in the copy of your government sponsorship letter. Okay, thank you.
One more.
Oh, sorry. How far are you with your bursary award? Have you signed your contract? Okay, so what we have done, and this is in consultation with the Ministry of Education, if you are still in the process of doing your, getting your contract executed from the ministry, we encourage you to apply for GATE. Apply for GATE until you have signed on that dotted line, or else to us, you don't have a source of funding for your tuition fees. Okay? Thank you. Just take out the-
All right. Thank you guys for the questions. Anyone have any other questions can always send an email, right? To service desk at sta.uwi.edu, right? Bursary service desk. In conjunction with the bursary, we also have a representative from GATE. She comes every year. Her name is Mrs. Stephanie Lovelace. And if we have any questions or answers, I know the weather is changing and everyone is anxious to get home, but this is a lot of crucial information as well. It's the last segment. So let's just bring on Miss Lovelace, and then there are supposed to be some tours after, and I'll talk to you guys about that, right? So, Mrs. Lovelace, I invite you to the floor.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you to the University of the West Indies for having me here again today. Congratulations to everyone who is sitting here on your achievement. I realize that it's getting a little late and you all might be tired, but there are some very, very important information, bits of information that you all need to know, especially those of you who might have already applied for GATE funding. So I'll just go through it as quickly as possible, all right? Some of the things you might have already known, some of the things you will still be hearing, some of the things you might have friends or family who might want to find out about the GATE program. So really and truly, the GATE program is designed to support you, the student, but you must qualify. You must ensure that you provide all of your identity documents, etc. How many of you have already applied for GATE if you are seeking to access GATE? Okay. How many of you are recipients of a national bursary? Good. Any scholarship students here today? Okay, fine. Just one or two? Okay, fine. So the information might still be pertinent to you guys who are scholarship recipients, and it will be pertinent to you as national bursary recipients as well. So the Ministry of Education, as you know, provides assistance to all of you in different ways. For those of you who are national scholarship recipients, you know what to do. You know that you have to contact scholarships@moe.gov.tt for information, and you know who your handler is. National bursaries. We are asking you guys who are recipients of a national bursary to please apply for GATE in the interim. You can only apply for GATE while your documents are pending at the scholarships division. So only when you have executed your contract will that whole setup change. While you are waiting for that contract document, you are required to apply for GATE, because at the end of the day, as Ms. Howard and Ms. Gooding would have said, somebody needs to be paying your fees, okay? We also provide assistance through the higher education loan program. Some of you might have already accessed help. Some of you may not know, so we're gonna get into that a little bit as we go along. The GATE program was also designed based on the new revised policies to give students access to 2 programs only, up to a bachelor's level degree. So it doesn't matter what you would have done before, you get 2 programs only up to a bachelor's level degree. And if you have already accessed funding for a bachelor's degree, we will not give you GATE funding for another bachelor's degree. So please bear that in mind for those of you who have not yet applied for GATE, all right? Most of you would have already accessed your TT Connect IDs, am I correct? Right? All the gated students, the ones who are seeking to access GATE. So we want to make sure that you also have included us and added us as a frequently used email, or someone who will send you emails frequently, because that is the way that we contact you. That's how we send our notifications to you, via GATE, via help, via the means test. It is important. GATE is not mandatory. Anyone can decide we're not using GATE. We have a lot of people who tell us we don't want to provide you all with our documents, our salaries, etc., and they would pay for their children. We have people, GATE is not mandatory. As a result, you, a student of the UE St. Augustine, must apply every single semester. In order for you to qualify, we have to assess you. As a continuing student, we have to see your transcripts every single semester. As a new student, we want to see your documents, your identity documents. We want to see your means test documents. We want to see your acceptance letters, your academic documents. Those are the things that we want to see. In terms, there were some questions being asked over the time. We always get this question about obligatory service. For obligatory service is based on the amount of money that the government spends on you. So whether you're a scholarship recipient, a national bursary awardee, or a gated student, there is a clause that speaks to obligatory service. And in the case of the medical students, because of the amount of money that we spend on you guys, your obligatory services start at 5 years. So you have up to 5 years to serve the country in order to be considered as having done your obligation to the government. Do not allow anyone to apply for GATE on your behalf, please. Not your parents, not your cousins, not your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your friend, simply because this is a lot of personal information, people's incomes, household incomes, and because it is a secure page that you go on to attach your means test document, we prefer that you, the student, apply for yourself. The other reason is we have had a lot of instances where parents apply for their children and they use their own names on the application. Friends apply for their friends and they use their transcripts to attach for us. We've had and it creates a bigger problem for you in terms of your turnaround time of the application. So please, I am asking you, do not have anyone but you apply for your GATE funding. Holds. Ms. Howard, Mrs. Howard and Mrs. Gooding spoke about holds a short while ago. AR holds are not placed on your student's profile by GATE. Once you have any type of a hold, you speak to your bursary first. Clarify what your issue is, clarify your status, and then you can talk to GATE if it is GATE related. Okay? In terms of the means test, it is used to assess families. So many of you would be getting a query at some point requesting additional information. I will tell you more about what the means query means to you, the student, as we go along. We ask that all students provide us with all the relevant documents so that we will be able to assess you quickly and accurately with the least amount of problems. So some points that I want you to be very aware of. The GATE e-service system is used by 3 entities: GATE, UE, and you, the student. Every time you get a notification from the GATE e-service system, it does not require you to visit the GATE office, because we send a notification at every point of the application. When it's applied, when we need additional information, when your application has been means rated, when you have been rejected, several times along the way, we give you a notification. There are some statuses that you need to be very conscious of as a student who is applying for GATE. One is when your application has been clearance verified. It doesn't mean that you have been approved. It simply means that your application documents attached to the application have been verified to be true and correct. When your application is clearance rejected, we give you a reason. Read your emails. If you do not respond to a request for information, the system allows you 14 days within which to respond. Your application will cancel. If your application is at the means query status, then you are automatically rated 50%, which simply means 50% of your fees, tuition fees, have to be borne by you. Pay attention to all of these things, because you have to apply every semester. Your application is going to go through these stages every semester. GATE processing does not require you to come to the GATE office. All that simply means is that your application was sent by the institution, or an invoice was sent so that we can pay on your behalf. That's all it means. All right? So this takes me to the point of the means test. Some of you may already know it, but it's just to reiterate some of the information. It is an assessment that is done on your family or any independent person to determine whether you can contribute financially to your own education. All right? It is granted annually, and it can change each year based on the household changes or household income. You are encouraged to always provide us with information. If there is a change, just send us the relevant documents or contact us. We are going to guide you on what to send and where to send it. An email is sent to the student when there's a query on the means documents. You are given 14 days to respond. Failure to respond to that email will mean it's a sanction of 50%. The GATE office cannot touch that. Once you are sanctioned like that, you will not be able, we cannot change anything on your application. It goes right to UE, and UE will then tell you, give me my 50% of my fees, right? So pay very close attention to those types of information. Please check your emails frequently. I have on the screen a sample of how just the funding eligibility is determined based on household income, what you should know. This information is also available on our FAQs page, all right? the HELP program. The HELP program is a student's loan, and it's a bank loan that the student, you can apply for once you're a citizen, once you're getting GATE, even if you're not getting GATE. The HELP program is available to you. It provides financial support for you, the student, especially within the FMS faculty. This faculty, you will realize how expensive it is to go to school, to do medicine, to do dentistry, to do vet med, to do pharmacy, to do all those things. It's very costly. So what we are doing is we're extending this to you. The Higher Education Loan Program is a student's loan. It's a low interest student's loan. What that means to you is that at the end of your program, the bank will then get in touch with you and start discussing with you means of repayment. The interest rate at which you have to repay, based on the market rate at the point in time, the government absorbs 4%. So what happens at that point is if it is 8%, the prime lending rate is 8%, you are only going to be repaying at 4%. All right, so pay attention to that type of information. You can access the higher education loan forms at any one of the 4 commercial banks. We don't, GMMB and those other banks, they don't come under this program. It's Republic Bank, Royal Bank, FCB, and Scotia Bank, okay? Documents that you require, similar to what you are giving us at GATE, with some additional information. We want to get your proof of registration of your courses as well. We want to get household, for the household, all the pay slips, a utility bill, references, etc., and the HELP application form. HELP, what does HELP really cover for you? It covers both tuition and non-tuition expenses. So things like books and traveling and caution fees and housing, etc., you can apply for that under the HELP loan. Tuition expenses, for those of you who have not been rated at 100%, we ask you to apply. What happens is that the committee will then sit on it and they will make a determination on how much funding they are going to provide to you through the HELP loan. The amount received is based on the means test as well. So they do a full means test. And for you students who are pursuing a program of study at the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine, your maximum eligibility is $35,000 under the loan per year. So it's good food for thought. And it's, if you have not already accessed the HELP loan and GATE, now is your time to do so, because it takes approximately 6 weeks for your HELP loan to be processed. It takes approximately 4 to 6 weeks for your GATE form to be processed as well. So if you have not yet applied for GATE or HELP, you should do so now. Okay? I have on the screen some contact information, and you can send us an email query. I tell people it's easier to send us a query than trying to call, because we respond to you within a 24-hour time frame. We have a window that we work with for all queries. Means test queries, you send it to the means test unit directly at members of MTU at moe.gov.tt. HELP loan queries, send it to them directly. We have people who are dedicated to responding to these queries, myself included. GATE-related queries, you send it to the gate.info. If it is something that is specific to your GATE clearance, you just tell them, ask Ms. Lovelace to tell me what's going on. And it will come, the email will come to me. All right? You don't need to come to the GATE office for everything. This is a rainy season, and it tends to flood around that area. St. Augustine seems to be flooding very, very quickly these days. So we encourage you to utilize the technology that you are very good at. Utilize the technology in terms of your emails. Please use professional emails. Every year, we have the same issue. It has, I say it every year, every school, and we get the same thing. Use professional emails, your sexy emails. keep it for your friends, keep it for something else. All these candy lips and sexy this and Mr. whatever. We get all these emails and yeah, it's funny, but it's real, you know. Um, and we ask students to please encourage your friends as well to use a little more professionalism. You all are entering a field where your professionalism gonna be really, really tested at points. So let's start at the beginning where that is concerned. For general information, you all can contact us at www.e-gate.gov.tt and even for queries, gate.info as well. So we try to give you as much information as possible to help you to have a smooth transition into your program and into the university, because we do know when the going gets tough for you guys in FMS, the tough is going to really get going. So with that, I have covered the general information. And if you have any questions, whether you have already applied or have not applied or don't know what your status is, you are free to ask any questions now, if possible. Yes. Yes. Sure. Yes. At the start, as soon as you get your results. So sometimes you may get results by the end of December or the first week in January. You just apply. All right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Those applications, students who applied in July, those applications are being processed this week because sometimes the banks, the timeline, why we give a 6 to 8 week timeline for the help loan is because the banks tend to wait till they get like a bundle so that it will come to us and we go through all and we do one sitting and do an assessment and we make decisions quickly in one day. So that is probably why, but your application is probably just pending that final decision. Yeah. Any other questions? Well, we have a lot of people who are gate ready here then. Everybody gate ready. I'm very happy to see that. I'm very proud of you all. First time, Ms. Gooden. First time ever. First time. We had 1 or 2 questions. Yes, go ahead. You have to contact us. You have to come into us with your documents. Yeah, because there are different scenarios. So you might have already started. If you didn't start as yet, then you need to withdraw or decline your offer and then come get your acceptance letter from Trinidad. So you have to come to us with all of your documents, right? Or to ease you up, you can send it via email and I will look at it and I will just write you back. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just when you send it at gate.info@moe.gov.tt, just in the email, attention, Mrs. Lovelace. And they don't even read it. They send it directly to me. And make sure in your email, the body of your email, you put a phone number that I can contact you. And I would usually call you and talk you through what you're required to do. If there are any issues, I'd tell you. And I would also support it with an email. All right? Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, sorry. Yes. Oh no, that's something that the bursary at the university is what they do. Again, because of the way their system is set up, the bursary would usually give you that information. So they would tell you how much your 25% represents. What we do, because GATE we have what is called an approved fee structure. All right, so your fee sheet might reflect several other things. All right, and that 25% portion might be included there. So what you have to do, again, I would have put it up earlier. Your first step is visit your bursary. Speak to them, contact them, send an email, and they would respond to you and they would calculate off and tell you what exactly is your portion. All right, anyone else? Okay. Thank you all very much for your attention, and I wish you all the best in the coming year. I hope that you all really give it your best. All right? And we look forward to seeing you again.
All right, thank you so much. You can go ahead and eject. All right, thank you so much, Mrs. Lovelace, right? That information has always been very helpful to students who are now embarking on their GATE journey. All right, guys, by show of hands, let me see how many nursing students are here still. Do we have a lot of nursing students? Okay, do we have optometry? Couple optometry. And any dental? All right. By show of hands, who's coming to the Guildfest on Thursday? Okay, so most of you are coming Thursday. What about the entrepreneurial fair on the Friday? Yeah? So here's what I'll do for you this afternoon, right? Because of the rain and the inclement weather, I'm going to postpone your tours. I know you're all also tired, right? Now, the reason I had the tours today, because the nursing students and optometry students are based at the Couva Hospital. So you all would have your orientation in Couva, and you all would have, you know, your tours of those areas where you would be having classes, right? There may be times you have to come to Mount Hope, which is why I said we will still have Mount Hope tours, so you can familiarize yourself with areas like the ATM, the bookshop, some of the classrooms. We have a gym here that's free for students. We have, you know, different areas, right? But I know everyone is tired. I know it's raining, and I don't expect anyone to go touring on the compound in the rain. So what I can do for you all is when you all are coming back to the Guildfest on Thursday, I have some tours set up from 9 a.m. to 12 noon, right? What I'm going to invite you all to do is to filter in between 9 to 12, present yourself at the auditorium, and I will join you up with the MBBS group. How does that sound? Or do you all want to go on tour today? You want to tour today? In the rain? Okay, who else wants to tour? How many people want to tour today? Let me see. Wow, this is a first, you guys. I thought y'all were tired and I thought y'all were looking like y'all were losing interest in my orientation. I'm glad to know y'all still. So whoever wants to tour today, stay back. Everyone else, if you all want to tour on the Thursday, we have Thursday tours. Like I said, it's from 9 a.m. to 12 noon. And if anybody even makes it on the Friday, we could get 1 or 2 volunteers to take you all out on the Friday, right? The Guild Fest that is taking place is the FMS Guild Fest. It's the Faculty of Medical Sciences Guild Fest. So it's actually going to be right outside the amphitheater area. You'll be seeing a lot of white tents with different booths. Luke would have spoken to you guys earlier about it. All the different clubs and associations are invited to showcase their clubs. Some of them are very interesting. Some of them have trivia games where you could win prizes. So I encourage everyone to come out to that, you know, just to socialize and have some fun. It's not always about learning all of these lectures that we learned today, right? On the Friday, the faculty has decided to take up the initiative with the Guild to invite students who are entrepreneurs to have an entrepreneurial fair. So you'd get to see some of the talents of our students, those who make things, those who sell things, those who buy to resell things, right? Whether it's school related or non-school related items, you'll have a wide variety on display. So, like I said, everyone who wants to leave, I'm now going to invite you to do so. And anyone who wants to stay back for the tours, give me 10 minutes and let me see how best we could sort out the tours given the inclement weather, right? Thank you. Um, Not really, no. Because just now, let me give you a breakdown. For the library, where they told you all to meet, they said anywhere to meet? I don't know. I didn't see them come back here. Well, I'm not sure. 3 o'clock, 3 o'clock. I tried to call them, but they didn't answer the phone, so I'm not sure. Have a seat now and let me see if I can get on to find out if they started, if they tore, and if not, you could always join up with another group, right? Hi. So what? Mm-hmm. Check, check them, Mrs. Gooding. Right there. The one who did the presentation. She's talking to the lady. Very yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mrs. Pakistan. Right there in the pink sweater. Please registration and academic data. First row. Okay, guys, for the tours, you guys could just sit in the middle here because I'm trying to get the volunteers to come and meet you all, right? So if anyone on the outskirts wants to do the tour, I invite you to have a seat right in the middle. Um, the Mount Hope tours for yeah.